Hey there, everybody. It's Fred Thomas at All Things Bike live stream. And today we are speaking with Kim Chamard of the Trek Across Maine. Kim.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You are the first to be on the show live stream. Congratulations. I know. Well, it's great to have you on the show and talking about the Trek Across Maine. So before we start in, just tell us about, the dates. I know it's happening now. It's slightly different, but
yes.
Where is it happening? What are the dates? What's the registration?
Yeah, so traditionally the Trek Across Maine takes place on Father's Day weekend, which was, of course, last weekend. But with the fact that we've gone virtual this year, we made the announcement on April 13th. So that's when the start of the virtual trek was. And it's running through the end of this month, so until June 30th. So even though the traditional trek weekend has passed, we still have people participating, we still have people raising money, and people can still sign up and participate even within the next week if they want to do that. So it runs through June 30th, and registration is still live at trekacrossmaine.org. So that's where all the details about, fundraising minimums and setting mileage goals and, incentives you can earn, all that kind of fun stuff you can find at trekacrossmaine.org.
I get it. So it takes, so we've got all this time to participate in this event. And so what happens after the 30th of June, we can still be out there riding around, doing all our miles, still participating in it indefinitely. Is that right?
Yeah. So we, of course, have to set deadlines just for financial purposes for the organization. But, we're hoping with the Strava leaderboard that we created, we have, over 300 members there. Yeah. And then with our Facebook group that we have as well, that has still really kept that sense of community going, because that's one of the biggest parts of the trek is, getting together and seeing 1,500 other friends and cyclists over the course of the weekend. So since we weren't able to do that, obviously we're trying to keep the sense of community alive. And we found that with Strava and with our Facebook group, we've really been able to do that. So we're certainly hoping that even if, the deadline, as you want to say, for the event has passed, that folks will still be out riding, still be out, really keeping their lungs healthy and just staying out and enjoying Maine the best that they can while social distancing, of course.
Physical distancing. Yeah. Well, all right. Well, just to tell us a little bit about how the pandemic turned this event into something completely different. Just tell us the backstory on that.
Yeah, of course. So obviously, like the rest of the country, we were sort of keeping an eye on how things were progressing back in March or so. And, we really started those internal conversations of, there may be things that we can't control, of course, that are impacting our decision making and if we're going to be able to hold the event. And of course, the safety of our trekkers, our volunteers and spectators is our number one priority always. And we're a public health organization and a lung health organization. So, we had to be really aware of all of those things. And of course, we came to the conclusion that there were, that was the best decision and the safest possible decision for everyone involved. And, it was difficult, of course, because, if we had been able to think of a way that we could continue on with a traditional event, we certainly would have. But there were so many other factors at play, besides, restrictions of gatherings and things like that. We work with Colby College and Bates College, and there was all of the things that they were having to deal with students and decisions and that. So it just came to a point where we really knew that we couldn't wait any longer to make a decision, especially when people are fundraising and training and making logistical plans for coming together for the weekend. So, mid-April is when we made the decision, we made the announcement, and we had such overwhelmingly positive response. We're all in this together, and I think people really understand that, and they really understood the reasoning for the decision. Everyone was disappointed, of course, but people understood, and they really latched on to the fact that we still have this virtual opportunity to participate and support the Lung Association and ride our bikes and do these things that we love and those components that make up the trek. We just have to be creative with the community aspect since we're not going to be able to be together. So that's where, as I mentioned, we found that, Facebook has been huge because people have been sharing photos and videos and encouraging each other. And we have volunteers on there, posting pictures of peanut butter and fluff sandwiches, things that
scenery,
people would typically, and stuff that people would typically be enjoying event weekend. They're just, recreating it in a different way, which is really fun.
Yeah, no, it's remarkable how, the avenue or the direction, the digital direction that it's gone off in.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all sorts of fascinating things, and we'll get to that. We'll take a look at the Strava board and the Facebook group page. But just briefly talk about how the pandemic has added new relevance to the mission of the American Lung Association and the ride.
Yeah, well, I mean, as we know, COVID is a respiratory illness, and we're the American Lung Association. So it's super relevant, of course, to what our organization stands for. And we made the announcement, our national office did in mid-April, that we are going to be funding a $25 million research initiative, specifically focused towards COVID and future, knock on wood, respiratory pandemics that may happen. So it's a really tangible and relevant thing for our participants to know that the money that they're raising is directly supporting what's happening in the world right now, and really making a difference in that way. So just the fact that people have been able to sort of grab onto that, hold onto that, and know that they really truly, I mean, they always are making a difference, but it feels even more real
it's more
right
relevant
now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's been a blessing in disguise, the fact that we're able to use what's happening right now and make people feel that sense of empowerment and that sense of they're making a difference when, so much of what's going on, we feel totally helpless. And so this, I think it really gives people something to strive for and to really share with their donors and their supporters that they are supporting that super relevant thing that's happening right now.
I mean, do you think, do you get the sense that participation may be up because of that, or it's reaching a whole new audience?
So there's definitely, I think, a new audience. We've seen, since we announced that the event was going virtual in mid-April, we've had I wrote it down, we have had 165 new participants register, since that time. So these are people that just, didn't say, the Trek's not happening, we're not signing up. So we've had 165 people, and almost 100 of them are brand new. So these are people who've never ridden with us before. So the fact that, what we're supporting and the virtual component of it is, what drew them in. So that's been really exciting to see that we have these brand new people that are coming in to participate with us. And it's from across the country too. I mean, we have people in Florida, Georgia, Wisconsin, California, Ohio, people that are participating across the country, which is just super cool to see.
You still have that core group in Maine.
Of course.
When we look at the Strava board, you'll see that people are
all over the place. Yeah. Really cool.
Let's talk about how the ride actually works in the virtual world. Let's say I register and then I want to do the 60-mile ride. Just give me a sense of how that would work.
Sure. So what we did, of course, going virtual, certainly it made it much more challenging to incorporate the cycling component, simply because there was no, it's not a race. So people don't win prizes for going fast or anything like that. So what we decided made the most sense for us was to keep the fundraising component, since, at its core, this is a fundraising event. So we kept a minimum there in order for people to earn incentives. So we reduced the minimum because we wanted to be sensitive to the fact that fundraising in this day and time is challenging. It's different. People have a lot more challenges that they're focusing on or that are impacting them. So we reduced our fundraising minimum down to $250. It's typically $550 per person, and we adjusted that to $250. And we left that as the only requirement. So in order to be an official, quote unquote participant, once you hit that $250 mark, you will earn your commemorative T-shirt, your accomplishment medal that you would have received on Father's Day, the bib number that people wear, and folks have the ability to retain their participation streak. I mean, we have people that have ridden all 35 years of the event, 36 years. So it allowed people to keep their streak alive.
Just to stay connected. Right.
And with the riding piece, I mean, certainly it's a cycling event. So we want to encourage people to still get out and spend time on their bike in their own communities, or on their stationary bike or their Peloton or whatever that might look like. So we set some suggested goals for people. 60 miles would be the equivalent of riding one day of the Trek. 120 would be the equivalent of 2 days. And then 180, of course, would be the equivalent of riding the traditional event.
The old one, yeah, right.
So we encourage people to set some mileage goals for themselves if they wanted to do that. And, we've seen people go way above and beyond that. They're riding way more than 180 miles.
I know.
So that's been really fun to see that people are still embracing that goal, that it's not a requirement, but they're
Right.
still out and they're riding and they're enjoying what they love about the trek.
Right. So they don't have to ride the 60 miles around Brunswick, or they don't have to ride the actual route. They can just get out there and ride any of their miles. So let's see if we can take a look at the Strava leaderboard. I am going to share that and we will be able to see it. All right. Can you see that? You see the virtual Trek Across Maine? Let's see. Oh, wait, here we go. Right. Okay.
Yep, I can see that.
There it is. All right. So anyone can join this club, right?
Yes.
Looks like you've got at least 700 people, 700 people in the club. And here's the leaderboard. I mean, Strava has become, such an essential feature of riding now. I mean, people just love to see their rides and their data, and it's not competitive, but people are definitely competitive about KOMs and how far and how long they go, and
oh, totally.
And myself included. I mean, right now I'm just losing every KOM I ever racked up because I'm just getting slower and slower. But I look at other things like elevation. So let's take a look. Here's George. He's got 17,000. He's in West Park, New York. So a great example of someone who's not from around here. Somehow there must be a lot of hills in West Park, because he's leading, or he's not leading. He's got a lot of elevation. And Joan, where is Joan riding? I don't know where she is from.
I think she splits miles. Some of these folks I've spoken with or know some of their stories. So George, that we just kind of looked at, he's one that's put in over, I believe, 1,300 miles since we created the group in April. So that's just amazing. And I know he has a really specific, strong connection to the mission of the Lung Association. I believe he lost a family member to lung disease, and then also a very close friend to lung cancer. So he was riding this past weekend, I know, with some of his friends in honor of that friend that they had lost to lung cancer out in New York. So it was just, we love seeing his photos, and we know that they have that strong connection.
Well, that's incredible.
And so we have folks in our group that are riding in down in Georgia. I've seen folks putting miles out in California and sharing photos. And then it's really fun to see all around Maine where people are riding. People are down, riding near the lighthouses and along the coast in southern Maine, and then up in the Bangor, Orono area. So it's just been really cool to see sort of where people are riding in their own community and how they're working to get miles in. And we've been sharing, just as kind of a fun, lighthearted competitive thing, we've been sharing our top 25 leaderboard from Strava every week. So it's been really cool to see some people have kind of stayed on that leaderboard week after week because they're just out riding all the time. But then there's people that choose, 1 week to put in a ton of miles, and they hop right to the top of the leaderboard for that week. So it's been really fun to see.
I get that. Yeah, I think Austin Watts might have done that. I think last week was beautiful weather, and he looks like he got out there and did the whole thing in one shot. 20 hours, 19 hours back to back. And that's fascinating. That's great that you actually know some of these folks who are doing it. Now let's see if I can go hop over to the Facebook page, and we can take a look at that. And let's see. Are you seeing that? Oh wait, hang on. All right, how's that? Is that coming up?
Yep.
Right on. Yeah. So look, there's the leaderboard you were talking about. So, anyone can join these Facebook groups, right? And Strava clubs, it's public, right? You just hop right on. You got to have your accounts, of course, but there's the leaderboard you're talking about. And there you are talking about the Trek contest. I know. Yeah. And here's a good picture of that you were talking about. So it is funny how the virtual aspect of the event has created a whole new dynamic. And here's someone in California, like you were mentioning.
Yeah, so we're doing, as you mentioned that video, we're doing a photo contest. So we're asking people to submit selfies as they're out riding with landmarks in the background, so we can kind of tell where they are. So whether it's at like a library or whether it's, just someplace that kind of states or is very obvious their location, because we were just trying to see how many different landmarks within Maine and New England, but across the country, we could sort of compile and put together. So I'm going to give it until June 30th, so the end of sort of when the trek runs, and I'm going to compile all of those images that people have submitted, both in our Facebook group and on Strava. Some people have just emailed them to me directly, and I'm going to compile all of those together into a video just to kind of commemorate the event, and so people can sort of see their photo pop up there. And it's just so fun. I have almost 150 photos already, and seeing what people have submitted, and some of them have gotten super creative, which is really, really fun to see. So I can't wait to put that together and share it with everybody.
It's going to be a huge project, right? I mean, this is a whole sort of digital production that probably didn't happen when the event was in the physical world, right? Because everybody was piling up content left and right.
Yeah. We typically have an event photographer that comes and captures, 2,000 photos of people across, the weekend. And so we share that and people can download them. But we don't have that this year. So we had to get creative. So this is fun where people are just kind of submitting their own experience and their own photos, and we can group them all together and people can see themselves, sort of represented that way.
Well, talk about just how different organizing this event has been, because in the previous years when it's in the physical world, there's just all this planning with hotels and trucks and sound systems and gear and all that, and volunteers and people. I mean, I remember you talking about just the scale of effort that goes into this. And this year, there's still some organization, but it's got to be less but still demanding less but different. I mean, talk about that.
Yeah, totally different. I mean, certainly the actual physical logistical pieces, as you mentioned, like the route. I mean, some of that stuff was already done by the time we made the decision. But it's that kind of last minute, the organization, the packing, the volunteer assignments, all of that stuff that kind of, wasn't necessary anymore because we were doing the virtual event. So of course that piece was much less and different, but then we had to kind of refocus into the communication and engagement piece, because that was really the biggest way that we were going to keep our participants who were already signed up feeling like they were a part of the event, knowing that they weren't going to see us face to face. And then also trying to recruit people to still participate with the fact that it was a completely different event this year. So we had to really get creative in the way that we did that and make sure that we really amped up our communication as far as creating videos and content and e-blasts and Facebook messaging and things like that, revamping our website with totally new messaging. So there was a lot that went into it in that way. And then, digitally advertising and how can we reach out to people in a way that they're going to see this where they're at on Facebook ads or whatever it might be. We made some changes to our typical advertising in the fact that we didn't do as much radio as we might because people aren't in their cars driving to work, so they might not hear that on the radio. So we really had to be creative in that way as well. So it was certainly a totally different logistical kind of
but
that we had to take on.
That's right. The work is still there, but it's totally different. I mean, do you think that some parts of the virtual ride are gonna remain? I mean, it seems like everybody, schools and offices and everybody is looking at the sort of digital world that we're in and saying, hey, I kind of like what we're doing here.
Totally. We've already
online videos. What's that?
Yeah, we've already so registration for the 2021 Trek Across Maine is already open, and we are, fingers crossed, optimistically planning that we'll be back to, quote unquote normal with a traditional event, right? But we've already incorporated the virtual option into our 2021 event. So we're still going to have that opportunity and that component built in, just knowing that even if we are still able to have the traditional event, which, hopefully we will, and we know we'll have great participation with that, the virtual option could still be really appealing to people, especially, across the country. If there's someone who live far away, or perhaps they have to work Father's Day weekend or whatever that might look like, we still wanted to have that be a positive piece of the event. We're not looking at it as a negative. We're looking at it as an enhancement to the event.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a whole new opportunity that we can continue to offer to people. So we have already incorporated that into what we're doing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, the Trek Across Maine could occur in December, the winter version, right?
Yeah, put in your miles whenever you want to, or do a fundraising campaign whenever it works for you. So that's kind of the beauty of it.
I know. Well, I know. Well, that's great to hear. Well, how can you, if you want to volunteer, are there still volunteer opportunities, or is that just on hold for now?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously it looks completely different because of the fact that we don't have a physical event that we're needing those extra hands for. So what we did,
people, right? 700
right,
people.
typically, 600 to 700 people. So what we did with our volunteers, because again, we wanted to keep them engaged, the people that we had, that core group of people. And so we created what we're calling, the COVID-19 champions, kind of tying in with what's happening. And basically our volunteers, we just asked them to make a self-pledge. They don't typically have to do any fundraising. It's certainly still not a requirement, but we gave them that opportunity to do that a $19 self-pledge. And if they did that, they would still earn their volunteer t-shirt like they typically would, and retain that volunteer streak of years that a lot of them try to retain. Yeah. So it's been a way that they can still, earn that commemorative piece. But our volunteers have raised almost $5,000 just among the volunteers, which is so awesome to see that they really have felt that they're connected in this new way, since they weren't able to, donate their time that they typically do. It's just been kind of a fun and different way for them to stay engaged.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, it's great. It's important to keep people connected during this sort of interruption. And it sounds like people still are, right? I mean, people from all over the country keep turning up for this event. Last year they were coming from all over, and they still seem to keep coming back. And it's great. Now, two more things. Will there be a Zoom party after the event is over, right? Because there used to be a big party, in Brunswick when the event was over. What's the plan for that?
So we don't have a Zoom party planned yet, but we are working. We are working with, typically we have what we call Spirit of the Trek, which is really a celebration of the accomplishments that everyone has, made over the past year, the work that we've done as the American Lung Association, recognizing our top fundraisers, things like that. So we typically do that on Saturday evening of event weekend. And we have our Chief Division Officer who speaks, and we have board members who speak and really recognize what people have done. So we're actually working to put together sort of a wrap-up video, thank you, acknowledgement, celebration type of a thing that we're going to be sharing. So I don't know if it'll be on Zoom or if it'll be recorded on Facebook. I'm not exactly sure yet, but we are working on something.
Right. Well, it sounds like it'll be easier than trying to get a couple thousand people.
Totally. And, sit on your couch and watch rather than having to, come up and sit under a tent with us. It'll be beautiful.
No, great. Well, then now I've been remiss. I haven't done the Trek Across Maine, but this might be the year, just because it's virtual and just the amount of work that's involved in traveling anyway. It's so much more reduced. Are you planning on doing it? Is this the year that you might do it?
Now, not me personally, but I don't even own a bike. So that's hard for me. But I do know, so a couple of my coworkers, so one of them used to ride, hadn't for years, and she actually signed up to ride, and her son in Ohio is doing it with her. So they're kind of virtually doing it together. So that's really exciting. And then another of my coworkers purchased a Peloton to have at home. So she and her daughter are riding the Trek virtually on their Peloton, which is really cool. So it's fun that our staff, I mean, typically we don't get the opportunity to participate because we're running around taking care of things as they pop up event weekend. So it's just been really fun to see those different opportunities that we have to participate in a totally new way this year.
I know. Well, I'll keep asking, and if I get to it, if I pull it off, then we'll make sure that you get a bike, and then you'll
maybe someday.
You'll be on the hook. All righty. Well, just remind us quickly at the end of the cutoff date, so people know how to register and where to go, and then we'll be wrapping it up.
Yeah, so the website is trekacrossmaine.org. That's where you can find all the information about how the virtual trek is working this year, Deadlines for fundraising, registration is there. You can also find the information about the COVID-19 volunteer challenge that we have going on to earn volunteer t-shirts and statuses in that way. And there's a really great frequently asked questions section as well that just kind of explains it in a little bit more detail. So trekacrossmaine.org is definitely the place to go for all of that information.
All right. Hey, well, that's great, Kim. Well, thanks so much for joining us on the live stream debut episode. It's been great to talk, and good luck, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you. That sounds great.
Thank you, Kim. Bye now.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, everybody. That was Kim Chamard of the Trek Across Maine. If you want to join the event, it's not too late. You go to www.trekacrossmaine right here.org. You can sign up, and you can do the miles anywhere you want to do them, and you can do your fundraising in your network. That's all we have. Thanks so much for watching, and we will talk to you again soon.